What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Monster Hunter video. Today we're going to be taking a look at a video by MS Swooker. I think that's how you pronounce that. I've already subbed to his channel. He makes amazing content, and we're going to be checking out a video that he made. This is 2 months ago. It's called "The Best Monster Hunter Game Isn't What You Think." So I'm very curious to see what his take is on all this stuff. There's obviously a lot of debate now still on what is the best Monster Hunter game. Is it the older generation games? Is it World? Is it Rise? What is it? Let's take a peek.
I often feel like Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is the best Monster Hunter game.
Okay, we're starting off very hot already, right out of the gates.
But I'm not sure if that's actually true. So let's...
Okay, before we continue, I think the people who started in the older generation, let's say Monster Hunter 1, 2, Try, whatever, you may like Monster Hunter Generations because at the time, that was the most advanced Monster Hunter was at that point. And, you know, a lot of people who like the older games can't get past the differences between GU and World alone, like stopping at that point there, not even including Rise. They stop at that point, and it's such a generational change that it creates a whole different type of game. Now, for the people who played World first as their first game, I think they're going to choose World because it is what it is. It's a great game. It's a phenomenal game. And then the people who played Rise, whether it be after World or from the older generations, excuse me, I know some people like it because the speed and just how dynamic it is, but ultimately I think most people are going to say it's going to be World just because of the changes that happen in World and just your ease of use of play and the hunting aspect of it.
Take a look at what this game has to offer and see if it really does stand above the modern titans of World and Rise. A lot of what I love about GU is this feeling. It's hard to put into words, but I think I've pinpointed exactly what creates
Nostalgic feeling, I'm assuming.
And why it's partially lacking from World and Rise. So there's a movie called The Mist, and in it a town gets consumed by, you guessed it, a mist that conceals these otherworldly monsters. The characters barricade themselves in a supermarket, and the movie is all about them figuring out how to survive this whole ordeal. It doesn't sound very scary on the surface, but this movie was utterly terrifying to me as a kid. I think a large part of that is because of the idea of the unknown monster. There's nothing you can show on a screen that'll ever be more horrifying than what a scared and confused mind can create. So as a result, films like this won't reveal their main monster until much later on, if they even show it at all. However, this phenomenon works in the opposite direction as well. The maps of Monster Hunter World are nothing short of breathtaking. I'll never forget
beautiful.
when I walked out into the forest for the first time and saw this absolutely monolithic tree that, little did I know, I'd be...
It's just absolutely stunning. Everywhere you go on Monster Hunter World, it's just beautiful.
Dueling a Rathalos on top of in just a dozen hours. The ability to see this massive landmark in the distance and actually being able to access it is truly something special.
It's huge.
And I think it's this overall design that permeates through the game that's a large reason for World's overwhelming success.
Yeah, and that was cool because you could also do that on Monster Hunter Rise as well.
Unfortunately though, once you've actually explored these areas, that sense of wonder begins to fade a bit. The world goes from unknown
especially
to known.
In the ancient forest, because you're just getting lost the whole damn time. At least I was.
From larger than life to predictable and well understood. In a way, these grand areas almost begin to feel small, despite being inconveniently large. In Generations Ultimate, on the other hand, that feeling never really faded for me. Naturally, a fair bit of this is nostalgia. I won't pretend that doesn't exist here. But I think an even more significant and quantifiable aspect lies in the design of these maps.
It is really cool.
The ancestral steppe is one.
Now, we can't go to these mountains and stuff like this in this game, but it is pure beauty too.
Of my favorite maps in the series. So the base camp is located in a small
I'll definitely give it that 100%.
These maroon stones will be important later, so keep them in mind. From this base camp, you really can't see much, and that's okay. You're not supposed to. It's sort of like that moment at the start of World where you're surrounded by dense foliage until you walk out into the forest for the very first time.
And then you
it's
see all the
what's waiting for
vast
you
beauty.
Revealing it too early. Here you can see this blinding light shining through between the arches, concealing the rest of the map while almost inviting you out to explore it. This is where the first big difference in map design between modern games and older ones like Generations Ultimate comes in. While in newer games you just walk out into this field with no loading screens, in these older games there are loading screens between areas. This may seem like a disadvantage at first, and sometimes it absolutely is, but it's actually—
oh my god, getting hit back and forth between the areas. God, I will say in terms of advantages, right? If your health is low and you get slapped into the next zone, you can easily heal yourself. First is a game like World of Rise, there are no zones. If you get hit out to the next area, the monster can still attack you.
Actually got this unique advantage that modern games physically can't exploit. When you walk out into this starting area, you're confronted with this endless plain to your right.
It is
and
beautiful.
A bit of foliage overshadowed by an enormous
that is really nice. I mean, granted, you can't go there, but it is really cool to see.
Just behind it on your left. This mountain is actually accessible by the player. You can make your way through this golden orange forest and actually climb up to find a nest amidst the crags of the mountain. The variance here is astonishing. Everything from sheer cliffs to open fields to a dense woodland hiding these massive ruins. Remember those maroon stones from earlier? They're all small parts of these ruins that are dotted across the map. They really add this sense of mystery and wonder to this place that's hard to put into words. The ruined pinnacle, however, takes this same idea and cranks it up to an 11. This is a map that
holy crap. I need to see that again. You have a little airship here. This is pretty stunning, actually.
Takes this same idea and cranks it up to an 11. This is a map that was introduced in Generations Ultimate, and it's the home of everybody's favorite rocket-powered Elder Dragon. In fact, there's actually a cutscene where Valstrax grabs a Ludroth out of the water and takes it up to its nest in the ruined pinnacle. I don't think I need to tell you how high up this thing is. You can literally see it poking out of the clouds. This map rivals the Ancestral Step as far as the variety of the locations go, but I think what I really love about it is the theme that runs through nearly every area. This entire map is hundreds, maybe thousands of feet in the air, and in almost every zone, if you get close enough to the edge, you can look down and see clouds below you.
That's really cool.
Through this map and get higher and higher, you'll eventually reach this one area that's just in a perpetual storm with fierce winds and lightning everywhere. But this isn't where Valstrax is. No, Valstrax is even higher still. You can even see a normal wyvern nest here for monsters like Rathlos and Seregios right next to this massive spire.
This is crazy.
Almost as if to say this is where normal wyverns live.
Seeing stuff like this really makes me want to go back and play GU. Damn, this is just really cool. I just don't like the whole, like, standing in your hill. I don't like the farming all the extra stuff, but all this stuff is the cool stuff.
Where you're going. So you climb up and finally reach the peak where, despite the lack of storms or even clouds, it's borderline unsettlingly dark, and that's when it clicks. It's darker up here because this is probably the upper atmosphere, and you're on the edge of space. That's where Valstrax lives. That's where you just spent all this time climbing up to. This type of journey
that explanation was beautiful.
In a game like Rise or World, and I don't know if I'd want it even if it was. It would just take so long to properly convey the distance without some kind of fast travel. And this is what I'm talking about when I say the imagination is stronger than reality. Traversing these maps feels more like an adventure to me, not because I'm able to explore all of the set pieces or landmarks, but because I'm forced to imagine what exists in between. But that's not why we play Monster Hunter, or at least that's not why I play Monster Hunter. These set pieces are wonderful, there's no doubt about that, but what really matters at the end of the day are the monsters and the hunters. This is where things get a bit close for World and Rise versus GU. If I'm being completely honest, I think of the 10 best monsters Capcom has ever made, at least 6 of them are from both World and Rise. These two games host some of the best.
I mean, Nurg is phenomenal, Malzeno's phenomenal, Magnamalo was phenomenal, Gossarag. I mean, who else can we add to this list? There's a lot of
fights in the series.
There's a lot more to add.
Mechanics and spectacle. So how exactly does this 7.5-year-old game's roster compare? Well, there's no better place to start than where the game does, with who I believe is the best starting monster in the entire series, the Great Macau.
I haven't heard the Great Macau in a very long time. I think I remember hunting this thing at some point. I know I played a little bit of GU. I just didn't like. I'm not that far in it.
Is the purpose of a starting monster. If you ask me, I'd say it's to teach the player as much as possible about the game while also providing an engaging experience for veterans. That's pretty much exactly what Great Macau does. This monster teaches us 3 big lessons. First, it teaches us about signature moves. Basically, every monster in the game has a signature move. Before doing these attacks, there will always be some kind of warning. So think Teostra's Nova or Valstrax's Comet. Macau obviously doesn't have anything nearly as strong as these attacks, but it does have a signature move that will cause it to jump around on its tail like a pogo stick before lunging forward at the hunter.
And we also learned that Baroth is a monster that was designed to teach us how to delay our attacks. Like we watch them rush, get at us, and we get out of the way, and then we're taught that after that is when you attack.
Almost like the hunter was a subscribe button on a video they liked. This attack is pretty dangerous, and if you're not ready for it, you'll take a fair bit of damage. Of course, the Great Macaw will warn you before doing this attack. It won't do it out of the blue, and only when it jumps onto its tail do you have to watch out for it.
Same thing with Burrows, you hear the little train sound, and then it runs to you.
So in principle, it's actually not all that different from something like the Nova. This is important as it teaches newer players that monsters will have signature moves that'll deal a ton of damage. So if you see the monster doing something that looks a bit strange, like jumping on its tail or flying into the air before striking a pose, you should probably get out of the way. But that's not all. The Great Macaw actually mixes things up a bit. It doesn't always go straight into this jump attack. Sometimes it'll do little kicks instead. This is a quick lesson as it shows us that fights in this game aren't going to be as simple as the monster does A, so next it will do B. If the game was like that, it'd be pretty boring. This is something that you have to give a ton of credit to World for, as it totally reinvented the AI of the monsters in game and made their movements just a bit less predictable and robotic, which again is why it's so hard to compete with World and Rise in terms of monster design. But Great Macaw does teach us one final lesson, and it's the most important of all. You might notice something when the Great Macaw starts jumping on its tail. Maybe you'll deduce this through logic, or maybe you'll just have no sense of self-preservation. Either way, for one reason or another, you might be inclined to attack it while it's balancing. If you were to do that, you'd actually find that you're able to knock it off balance, interrupting the attack and sending the monster tumbling to the ground, leaving it wide open. This is the final lesson that the Great Macaw teaches us. Aggression will be rewarded. If you're
but aggression can also be punished.
Willing to risk putting yourself in a dangerous position, the game will actually reward you for doing so. This is a trend prevalent through the entire game, and we learn about it as early as the very first monster.
does it.
I do mean the entire
Lagombi
game.
does
you
it.
Towards Glavenus to dodge its signature spin attack. You attack the glowing parts of Astalos' body to knock it out of its charge state before it can dive bomb, and you even attack the heads of Nakarkos to prevent them from using their elements. The Great Macaw teaches us all of this while having the most aura of any starting monster. Did I use that word correctly?
You did.
The point is that the Great Macaw not only teaches us incredibly relevant lessons that we'll remember for the rest of the game, but it also showcases some of this game's vibrant and exciting personality, making it, in my humble opinion, the best starting monster in the series.
I could see that.
Next we'll go straight to the end, the final boss of high rank and one of the most unique monsters in the series, Nakarkos. This monster is the polar opposite of the Great Macaw. While our gleeful green goofball was the definition of a silly little guy, Nakarkos is literally a creature from the abyss. It makes its home deep in this cave filled with the bones of dead monsters.
Look at this, like, just the vibe that you're getting in this is pretty crazy. I mean, just think about the way how he was describing things before, you know, and then you put that into play here with where you are and who you're fighting. Like, it brings you this like certain feeling. I'm kind of feeling that just looking at this video here.
A creature from the abyss. It makes its home deep in this cave.
Like it's like eerie looking, you know, you're just on this tall ass thing, and you jump in this big dark black hole that you don't know what's down there, and it's surrounded by just crumbling rocks and just
of dead monsters.
The atmosphere is cool.
The map is granted the fitting name of Wyvern's End. What makes this monster so unique though is that it almost feels like a more traditional final boss. You know how a lot of older final bosses from games like Mega Man would copy the moves of bosses throughout the game? Well, that's exactly what Nakarkos does. The way it does this is by utilizing the skulls of monsters to draw out their elements and use their attacks. This is pretty chilling, but it's also a wonderful way to close out the game. You spend the entire game fighting and learning all of these monsters and their capabilities. You'll learn that the Lagaiacris can form chains of lightning by stringing together individual bolts, or that Brachydios can create puddles of explosive slime that'll detonate after a certain period of time, or that Uridon has a big chin and is a terrible fight. So when Nakarkos sorts through its collection of bones and pulls out a head that very vaguely resembles Lagaiacris, only to then start using those very same moves, you have this moment where you recognize these attacks, and despite this new environment,
that's so cool. That is really cool.
You're more than capable of dealing with.
So this is the little Lagaiacris head. Damn, that's really cool.
However, it also adds to the darker theme of this fight. Capcom could have made a final boss that was capable of copying other monsters in a plethora of different ways. Maybe it's a monster that uses chemicals to mimic the fire of Rathalos or the lightning of Zenogre. Maybe it could be an especially perceptive monkey that spent time watching their monsters and figuring out how they fight, only to then incorporate some of their moves into its own style. But no, they chose to brilliantly contrast this game's vibrant, colorful, and lighthearted feel with a skeletal creature that copies other monsters by using their corpses to do so. You've been going back and forth with these monsters all game, and now there's this vile creature callously using their remains to fight you. So now, out of respect for these monsters that you've crossed blades with, this one has to be put down.
This one's so cool.
I said 6 of the top 10 monsters are in World and Rise? While
Holy
that's
shit.
probably true, of that top 10, I think the number 1 might be a monster exclusive to Generations Ultimate. A monster that has been described as a moving fortress, the single most threatening creature in the story of the game, the Atal Kai. Hey,
never fought it before, but I want to.
If you're currently playing Generations Ultimate blind or have any intentions of doing so in the near future, skip to the timestamp on screen. I'm about to spoil what I think is the single coolest reveal in the entire series, and I'd hate to take that away from you. I'll give you a few seconds.
Oh, wait.
Atal Kai is a shockingly diminutive monster at first glance. The way the monster is described in game, you'd think that it was some Lao Shan Lung or a Zora Magdaros. I mean, its quest is even called Castle on the Run. But when
Oh my god, Zora Magdaros is the most boring siege in the entire history of Monster Hunter.
when you finally meet it face to face, it's a bug. And not even a large one, it's only a bit bigger than a Celtis or a drone monster. As you fight it, you can see how it might be a threat. It's pretty quick and it takes advantage of this golden silk draped across the battlefield to dig up a massive steel beam that it'll swing at you. This isn't too hard to dodge, and just like the Macau, the attacks are all pretty telegraphed.
Yep.
But after you deal enough damage, it decides that it's had enough. The Mantis walks away and then begins firing a bunch of threads into the ground, and then...
What the hell?
the spectacle
What?
here is genuinely second to none. Not only does it totally subvert your expectations, but it does so by summoning this gargantuan mech that was just beneath the sand
That's absolutely insane.
this entire time. This, however, isn't the sole reason why this fight is so special. Oftentimes, spectacle comes at the cost of mechanics. A fight will look extremely cool, but in doing so, the player will be given less control over their character so that things can proceed just as
Oh
the
god,
developers
yeah,
intended.
this is the dumbest fight ever.
Either. An example of this from another boss in the series is something like Zora Magdaros or Darren
Terrible.
Moran, both of which are railroaded fights that create an absolutely brilliant spectacle, but do so at the cost of the more in-depth combat from the rest of the game.
Absolutely terrible.
Generations Ultimate, on the other hand, takes this stunning reveal and actually
Dude,
creates a solid
oh
mechanical fight
my
out of it.
god,
For
that's
example,
crazy.
there are these enormous AoE attacks, as you'd expect from a monster this big, but they're extremely telegraphed. Check this out. Notice how right after the foot slams on the ground, there's this massive dust cloud? This is actually reminiscent of some of the other monsters like Lagiacrus, who will send chains of lightning on the ground that won't hurt you, but will tell you where the next attack is going to be. This is the same. The clouds of dust effectively serve to tell you where these rock spires are going to pop up.
Nice.
The goal of this part of the fight is to hit these gold parts on the feet and knock down the mech before climbing into it yourself and attacking the nest where Atal Ka is taking refuge.
That's so crazy.
Upon doing so, you'll break it out and return to ground combat again. This time, things are a bit different, and instead of using a steel beam, Atal Ka starts throwing Dragonators at you while wielding one on a string that it'll swing around.
Louise.
So now the monster is using what has traditionally been the hunter's strongest weapon against them. Deal enough damage and you're back to the mech. Knock it down, and this time you're in the final phase.
Okay. This fight looks so damn cool. This looks so damn cool. Okay. I know what I said about GU earlier. Wow. This is making me consider things. I definitely want to play it again.
Atal Ka pulls out all the stops. It slides across the field using attacks from phase 1, the Dragonator from phase 2, and the wheel from the final phase, tossing them at you and swinging them across the battlefield, all while
This
using
hunt is crazy.
silk to spin Dragonators and launch several of them towards you at once. Atal Ka is simply combining the movesets from phases 1, 2, and 3. Those first 2 phases were effectively preparing you for this final phase. This entire time you were being taught how this final phase was going to go down without the game saying
A little bit of foreshadowing.
This progression is simply the cherry on top of an already excellent and one-of-a-kind fight. Yet again, despite all of this chaos, the fight still maintains an incredible level of mechanical fidelity. Somehow, none of these attacks feel unfair. No roars with instant follow-ups that are impossible to evade. No AoEs with a range too wide to escape. No nonsense.
Rathalos.
Just you and the monster giving it your all with the best rendition of Proof of the Hero playing in the background. That's not my opinion, that's a fact. This fight doesn't simply tell a story. It's not just an on-screen
Yeah, I need to do that.
It's a
I need to do it,
mechanical
man.
masterpiece
Absolutely.
and quite possibly the single best fight in the entire series.
Just how it was explained and shown right here. If I were to experience this for myself at the way that it's also being explained, I'm like literally speechless. It's just, this is such a cool hunt.
But as exceptional as Atal'Ka is, it's still just one boss. Both the quality and the quantity of high quality are simply too high in World and Rise for me to definitively say that Generations Ultimate has the better roster. There's still one last aspect we've yet to cover though. If you asked me to name the single most important change made in World and Rise that led to their astronomical success, I'd really struggle to come up with just one thing. I mean, the monster AI is a massive change to consider.
It's a whole lot.
Maps which
Yeah, I mean, the fights are a lot cooler. They feel more real. You can move around while drinking your potions, which is huge. You have your slinger on here, and then you have your wire bugs on Rise, which are completely game changing. You have a lot of UI changes that are fantastic. Your whetstones, your nets, your fishing rods, your pickaxes, they are all there forever. You don't have to farm for those things. I mean, there's a lot of things that change for the better.
Invented the hunting experience would have to be up there too. And of course, the overall presentation that made Monster Hunter both look and feel like a true AAA game
made it feel a little real.
Into account.
I mean, I understand that tracking monsters is extremely boring. I personally myself, the last video that I uploaded, I cut out some of it because it's so boring to, it's so boring to have, like, you just go out and collect tracks, but it makes sense to do it in the hunting aspect, right? You're looking for a Rathalos, right? So you got to get the tracks, you go to the den, you see where it's at, right? So logically it makes sense from a hunting standpoint. It's just boring to do.
So many aspects at play that I honestly don't think you could boil it all down to just one single thing. However, if I had to name just one single change, I think it would be just how fluid the Hunter feels. There's this rigidity of older games that just doesn't really exist in World and Rise, and that's not a bad thing. The newer games just feel more smooth and comfortable to play. Whenever I said, they feel more real. Games, I rarely feel like it wasn't my fault because of the incredible control I have over my character. I'm amazed that they were able to keep that.
Yeah, I mean, do you know how many times I was just healing myself and got destroyed by monsters? And when I played GU, again, I didn't play it to its full completion. I didn't do that. I probably have I don't know, 10, 20 hours in, something like that. But yeah, I mean, it makes a big difference to understand how you can control your hunter, how the monsters move around. It makes a big difference in your experience while you're hunting.
Heavy, deliberate feel of older games while also allowing the hunter and their movements to be so much more effortless. Compare this to something like Generations Ultimate where a monster can roar, then
you're getting hit immediately. But the thing is Rathalos does this in every game, right? It's just when you're playing World or you're playing Rise, you have different moving mechanics that can help you get out of those things.
Stunned, and the change becomes pretty clear. It's a change I thoroughly enjoy, and it makes it pretty hard to adjust when going back to older games. Equally, I have to admit that on the surface, the combat of World and Rise is a pure upgrade to that of older games like Generations.
Well, this is the thing, right? They did implement a lot of things. It makes the fighting seem a lot better, a lot smoother, especially in Rise, right? You're much faster. You can control the fight much better. You have your wire bugs. You have your wire bug mechanics. You have your switch skills. Same thing in World, right? The fighting just feels much better, feels more real.
However, that's just on the surface. Everything changes when you take into account what
I also want to talk about, just real quickly, in GU, you have different hunter arts, right, to go along with the different styles that you can have too. So Monster Hunter GU was really good in that, where you could play so many different ways and it feels fun in that way. Take for example, we have the switch axe here. You have your Demon Riot, so this increases your attack power. You do this really cool animation. Then there's other things where you use your axe and it does some cool little move with it. Like, those things are really cool. And then you have aerial style, where you can jump on monsters and mount them easy. So I mean, the fighting was still very, very fun. And just a quick sidebar, I want the Prowler back. The Prowler is so fun.
Believe is the single greatest addition Capcom has ever made to any Monster Hunter game.
Yeah, there's the Demon Riot.
Styles.
Yep.
We'll start with the arts since they're pretty straightforward and easy to explain. Hunter arts are special moves. You charge them up by hitting the monster and they do all sorts of things. Some of them are just one single powerful attack, some are more focused on evasion than anything else, and some are buffs that you can use to increase certain
and they look so damn cool.
Aspects of your weapon. Let me give you an example. My favorite Hunter art is called Demon Riot for the Switch Axe. This animation alone is phenomenal. But
isn't that animation just so fucking cool?
Actually does might be even better. First, it increases the power of your sword attacks, so now the axe is even more useless than before. Second, it constantly drains your sword meter. This might
but as long as this meter's full or red, you always have your sword. You always have your sword. And then you pair this up with another Hunter art where you can reload your sword so this gauge stays full. So then you use that and Demon Riot and you will forever have your sword. Isn't that fucking crazy?
It might seem bad, but the third thing it does is what makes this art so devastating. While in Demon Riot, nothing you do will make your sword gauge go down outside of the fixed drain that constantly happens. This means that you can drop elemental discharges and swing your sword to your heart's content
all day
without
long,
worrying about managing the gauge. Energy charge is a lot more simple, but when
there it is, energy charge. So you combine the two. You combine energy charge and Demon Riot, and then you will never run out of sword. Ever, 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 ever.
Used in conjunction with,
but then you have to like decide on what you want to do. Sorry, I know I keep pausing and talking, but you want to decide what you want to do because you have different hunter styles, right? So let's say you have Valor mode. I'm sure he's going to talk about it, but Valor mode, you can only pick one art. So you have to be very mindful of like, you know, what I want to do. Do I also want to charge my blade up? Do I always want to have Demon Riot where I can do a lot more damage? But you can't have the two. He has 3 right now, so I think he's in Striker. So Striker, it just changes your moveset a little bit. You can hold 3 of these, which I think Striker Switch Axe is probably one of my favorite. Valor too. Valor's really cool. And Aerial is also cool, but Aerial you only get 1 as well.
Demon Riot is borderline broken. It does exactly what it sounds like. This art instantly charges up your sword gauge by up to 100%.
Dude, that's so crazy.
If you play well enough, you can use Demon Riot forever, one time and then use energy charge before it runs out. You can then loop this combo indefinitely so that you have 100% uptime.
And it just never runs out.
For a more direct and simple art, the Charge Blade's Energy Blade is maybe the single coolest attack in the series.
It is. It's like the big lightsaber.
Files to unleash one single powerful attack that looks like this.
Dude, that's so cool. That is so cool. They need to bring some of these to Wild. I know they did. I know they did bring some of these things.
So those are the Hunter arts, and you could pretty easily make an 8-minute video just showcasing them, since every single weapon in the game has 4 unique arts. So different.
They're all so different.
Ones. Styles, on the other hand, might be even more important than Hunter arts, since they don't just give you 1 or 2 new attacks, but instead totally
change a lot of
how
things.
You approach the combat. There are 6 styles in the game: Guild, Striker, Aerial, Adept, Valor, and Alchemy. Each one changes your weapon's base moveset a bit, specializes in a certain type of combat, and allows the use of a different number of Hunter arts. Guild style.
So, from my experience, Valor Greatsword is the greatest thing to use in the entire game. Aerial and Seglaive is probably the most fun thing to use. And then, like, just for me personally, I think Striker Switch Axe is just the most like whole, well-rounded like weapon or fighting style.
Is the default that changes nothing about your weapon and allows for 2 Hunter arts. Striker allows for 3 Hunter arts and charges them a bit faster than normal. Aerial adds a jump to your roll, allowing you to launch yourself off of monsters and even players for aerial attacks and mounts. Adept style focuses on evasion, granting you a new adept dodge and a guard that allows you to perform special counterattacks. Valor is a high
and we've seen that in Monster Hunter Rise, right? this attack, this dodging mechanic here, but they used it with the wire bug.
Adept dodge and a guard that allows you to perform special counterattacks. Valor is a high risk, high reward style that gives you a new gauge up here that, once filled, will effectively grant you access to a stronger version of your weapon while severely limiting your options until then. Finally, alchemy style is a more support heavy style with access to 3 hunter arts and an SP
Never
barrel,
used it before.
some special items like earplugs to resist monsters.
I know it's good, but I've never used it before.
By the way, Aerial, Adept, and Valor all only have access to 1 hunter art. So that's a lot, but you might already see the potential that this system has. Let's go back to the Switch Axe. The biggest weakness of the Switch Axe is defense. It's phenomenal when it comes to dealing damage, but as far as self-preservation goes, studies have shown that the life expectancy of a Switch Axe user is less than half that of a Charge Blade user.
It happens all the time, man. It happens all the time. That's why I'm very glad that in Monster Hunter Rise, they introduced us the counter. I know they had a counter in Frontier, but they've had nothing like that since then. And all your dodging mechanics was you would just hop to the side with the Switch Axe. That's all you did. That's all you do. So you look at Worlds, all you did is you hop to the side and you had to just do it precisely. But now in Monster Hunter Rise, they have the counter. And then I said it right. In Monster Hunter Wilds, they have a counter as well.
It's not sad, we do it to ourselves. This is where styles come in. For a weapon like Switch Axe that's as offense focused as it is, having a style that's inherently
Valor's
focused
really
on
good
defense
for it.
covers up your biggest weakness. The Adept Evade will get you out of most situations where you would have otherwise gotten hit. This allows you to deal the damage of a Switch Axe user while not having to worry nearly as much about preservation.
And this was cool.
Of course, it works in the opposite direction as well. Remember the Demon Riot energy charge combo from before? Well, if you use that with Striker style, you may flinch the monster so often that you don't even have to worry about preservation at all.
And you also can throw in a dodge in there too. I think it's called Absolute Readiness, I believe. So you can have Absolute Readiness, Energy Charge, and Demon Riot. So you can dodge all the attacks. You can do your Demon Riot to increase all your damage. And then you can use your Energy Charge whenever your sword bar is low. So it's phenomenal.
Equally, however, due to the flexibility of Striker style, you could actually just use a combination of Absolute Evasion and Readiness, 2 skills that send you rocketing off in a direction with plenty of iframes to keep you safe. This turns Striker style into a more defense-focused role despite its inherently offensive nature. You could even take the high-risk, high-reward archetype of Switch Axe to the next level with Valor style and Demon Riot alone. See, when you fill the Valor gauge for Switch Axe, you gain a double elemental burst. This would normally use a ton of your sword gauge, but remember, your gauge only decreases at a fixed rate when Demon Riot is active,
which is nice.
So you can just let loose without restraint. Until you can't. You get the idea. All of this is just one weapon.
And then Valor's cool too because it also does this thing where when you put your weapon away, like you could hold, I think it's X or what button is it? Y? You can hold Y. Maybe it's the wrong button still. But you hold the button, whatever it is, the one where you put your weapon away, you hold it and you have this stance where you have this little blue aura. And if you are attacked within that stance, you immediately dodge and you immediately put your weapon away.
This level of depth and customization exists in every single weapon in the game. You can play a support-heavy sword and shield with Alchemy style, a mounting-focused greatsword with Aerial, or Sekiro with an Adept Charge Blade. It takes Monster Hunter's iconic level of customization to a totally different level never seen before or since. Even if Rise does get kinda close. If you ever find
I mean, Rise has the switch skills, which is cool, but the depth of it isn't the same.
Getting bored with Striker Longsword, you can change your arts. If you feel overwhelmed by a specific monster, you can change your style. And if you just want to try something new, your options are nearly endless.
It's a lot.
Part of what makes Monster Hunter as a series so special is that ability to totally reinvent the game at a whim by simply changing to a different weapon. It's a level of depth and customization that's extremely hard to find elsewhere.
Good job.
And yet, out of all of these games that are already exceedingly rare, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate stands alone in a class by itself.
It does.
So
I will agree.
Is Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate better than World and Rise? It's honestly hard to say. I've been thinking about this question a lot over the past few years, and I think what makes it so difficult to come to one conclusive answer is that
it's hard to say what's better, right? You just kind of look at the differences of what's great in one and what's great in the other. You know, it's just like the whole debate with, like, you know, Michael Jordan, Kobe, and LeBron James, right? If you're a basketball player out there, right? Each one is really good at their own thing, right? Like each one is good. And it's hard to like actually say which one's the best because they're all so fucking good. You know what I mean?
These games do so much so well. The presentation of World is entirely unmatched, there's no doubt about that.
Yep.
I mean, the game literally looks better than GU does. Equally, Rise might be the first Monster Hunter game I've ever played where there really isn't a bad monster. I mean, granted, I don't love all of them, but there are
Sure,
so many good ones. However, there's just this feeling. Naturally, a fair bit of it is probably nostalgia.
Yep, that's what I was gonna say.
I feel like Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is the best Monster Hunter game. And I think, right now, that's my answer.
And honestly, after this video, I cannot argue with this fact. I mean, or I don't want to say fact. I can't argue with this opinion. It was laid out very well. And even just me watching the video, it gave me different kind of chills and different sensations. And that's not even me playing the damn game. This is me just watching him talk about his own experience. And it really makes me want to get back into GU. But the thing that's stopping me is just how slow the damn game is. But it's something I can get over. But anyways, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you sub and make sure you give them a thumbs up. I will have his name and this video in the description of the video. Yeah, man, it really makes me want to play GU. It really makes me want to play GU. Maybe I will. Guys, thank you all for watching. Banger video, good job, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.